everybody, welcome back. This is course number 2. You just learned about self-worth and net worth, and now we're diving into some really cool information in this course because this course is all about you. This is about your core values and making sure you're aligning those core values to your wealth. So, before we start, I hope you have your favorite beverage. Mine is kombucha. Most people don't like kombucha. Let me know if you like kombucha because all my friends don't like it and I think it's amazing. So grab your favorite beverage, get a notepad, and get ready to learn more about you. All right, Mind and Money Wellness is again all about building and growing your wealth, challenging your mind, and taking both your mind and your wealth to a whole nother level. So today we're gonna learn about core values. All right, so what are core values? Core values are literally our fundamental beliefs about ourselves. And we wanna make sure those core values are in alignment with our wealth. So what is wealth? Well, how I defined wealth is all about what I call the 3 S's. S's is hard when you have braces, but S's. It's all how we save, spend, and share our resources. So when our core values are not in alignment with our wealth and how we spend, save, and share, things get out of balance. You see, out of balance, here's what this means. For me, when I started as a wealth advisor over 18 years ago, I remember writing down specifically that I wanted to make $175,000. And if I were able to make $175,000, man, my life would be set. I'd be able to save, I'd be able to have a couple of kids, my spouse and I would be able to travel, we'd live in a really nice home, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Within a couple years, I reached $175,000. And I still felt a sense of scarcity. I then doubled the $175,000 and I doubled it again. And I still felt this sense of scarcity because I was not allowing my true values as a person to be in alignment with how I was spending, sharing, and saving my wealth. So once I got a hold of this core value exercise, which you're gonna have a chance to do today, then I realized that my fear and my scarcity dissipated and I was living with true wealth. Okay, so let's take a minute and define this save, spend, and share. So first of all, I believe as a wealth advisor for the last 18 plus years that you should be saving a minimal of 15% of your income. Okay, might sound like a lot, but if you really want to retire someday, we learned this in the net worth program, that you have to be saving at least 15% of your income, your gross income. Now, on top of this is all about how we're sharing our resources of financial and of course time, but how are we sharing our financial resources? And I'll tell you, until you get to a point where you're truly sharing your wealth that you have, you will not ever be in alignment with life in general. So I believe you should be sharing at least 10% of your gross income. So if you're sharing 10% of your gross income and you're saving 15% of your gross income, that equals 25%. And then that means that 75% of your gross income should be spent however you want to spend your money based on your values. All right, obviously that 75%, unfortunately, we have to spend some of that money on taxes, so you can take about a third away of that 75% to spend on taxes, but the rest of it's yours and for you to spend how you want it. Now, I will tell you that when I was living in scarcity after making over $500,000 a year, it's because my saving, sharing, and spending were out of alignment. I wasn't sharing 10% of my resources. I wasn't saving 15% of my resources. I was just spending. And so that's why I always felt this fear and this scarcity mindset. In fact, years ago, I got this tattoo on my wrist called it's abundance. And I wanted to remind myself to save, spend, and share in alignment with who I am, who I was as an individual, and making sure that was in alignment with my values. Okay, most people either overspend like I was, or they always feel broke. And I don't even know what the percentage is, but most Americans feel broke and are living paycheck to paycheck and always wanting a little bit more money. Well, the reason being is because they are not in alignment. They are not spending, saving, and sharing in alignment with their values. So we need to learn right now about these core values. Okay, the best way that I can teach this core values exercise is telling you about my experience with a client, I don't know, probably 10 years ago. So I had a client that was in my office, and we were going through this core value exercise, which I do with all my new clients coming in. And one of this person's core values was freedom. And I asked him, what did freedom mean to him? And it was all about adventure and travel and experiencing life, not material things, but experiencing things and awesome things in life. So took those values down, and then we started talking about goals, his goals, and planning around his goals. And he said, well, one of my goals is to build, I don't remember actually if it was build or purchase a new home. And we talked about the cost of the home, and he thought it would be right around $700,000. And $700,000, this man could afford a $700,000 home. Okay, so it wasn't about what he could afford, but I wanted to make sure that this home was in alignment with his values. And so we started discussing, why this home. Well, he wanted to be in a certain neighborhood, and he wanted to be close to a lot of the restaurants and shops and all that kind of stuff. And the only way he could have all that exposure to that experience, which was super important to him, is building this neighborhood, and the houses started at $700,000. So we did a little math and figured out what was the true cost of him living in the $700,000 home with his wife and his children, and is that cost really in alignment with what he really wanted out of life. So I took my calculator and I did the cost of his mortgage, which would have been approximately, it was $2,700 a month. Okay, so he was going to spend $2,700 a month on his mortgage, on its principal and interest of his mortgage, and of course he could afford that. So then we talked about the house and the extra space in the home, which was really the basement that was contributing to part of the expense of the house. And I'm like, well, how much time are you going to use in the basement? So we started figuring out, his kids were going to use it sometimes on the weekends and for holidays. And we figured out it was going to be about 10% of the time he was going to use the basement. So I thought, okay, so 10% of the time, which was really about $900 a month out of that mortgage payment. So I annualized that, and it was about $11,000 a year. So I asked him and his wife if spending that $11,000 a year on the $700,000 home, which is really the extra cost was in the basement, was that really important to them, equating to $11,000 cost? And they kind of hemmed and hawed and said, I don't know. I think I'd rather spend that $700,000 on freedom and travel and adventure. And so we took a look at that and said, okay, because that $11,000 is actually costing you that per year. But if you looked at it over the life of the mortgage, it was going to cost him $327,000 for a basement that wasn't as important to him as his true value of freedom. And then a little side note, if he would have taken that $11,000 a year or that $900 a month, instead of plugging that into a basement, which he was going to use maybe 10% of the time, and invested that at an 8% annualized rate of return, I got my calculator out and did that math, and he was really giving up $1.3 million in savings. And not that the goal was to save that $900 a month and turn that into a $1.3 million nest egg, if you will. But I just wanted him and his family to be truly aware of the true cost of a $700,000 home, when in trade, he could have purchased a beautiful $500,000 home, still was able to be close to everything that was important to him, and still achieve his goals of adventure and freedom, and then still take a portion of that and save it for the future as well. So you can see how aligning values with spending, sharing, and saving habits truly can make or break your scarcity or abundant mindset. All right, let me quickly explain to you how this impacted my life as well. So my 5 values are relationship, health, spirituality, achievement, and excitement. I love excitement. That's why I hope you're not bored in this class, because we want it to be fun. We're talking about some serious stuff about how mind works and how money works, but we want this to be fun. And that's what you're going to get from me, because I love excitement. And I also like achievement, which is why I'm here trying to help you achieve your goals as well. Anyway, I just last year, with one of my values of health, I realized I did my core value exercise over and over and over for the last, 5-7 years. I would do it every year, and health was always one of the top 5 values. In fact, your values really don't change that much. So I realized that health was always on my top 5 values. However, my action toward living life of health, in my eyes, wasn't abundant at all. In fact, I was doing nothing with my health. So then I started realizing and getting back to the true meaning of values, and it's all about the beliefs. And it's about our beliefs of ourselves. And I realized I had a ton of limiting beliefs around my health. I won't yet tell you my age, but I'm way older than you think. And I realized that I wasn't taking action on one of my core values, health, because I thought I was too old and I couldn't have the same body, and that food wasn't metabolizing the same way it used to when I was younger. And I had all these limiting beliefs in my mind of how I couldn't achieve that health. Well, I tell you, once I became aware of those limiting beliefs and retrained the pattern in my mind about those limiting beliefs, health became a huge priority in my life. In fact, I used to hate going to work out because I thought my limiting belief was that I had to kill my ass on the treadmill, and I hated it. And I had to lift weights that were super heavy, and who wants to torture themselves for an hour a day doing that? But when I changed my beliefs about what it meant to be healthy in terms of eating and, most importantly, working out for me, my whole life changed on health. I didn't have to kill my ass when I was on the treadmill. I didn't have to lift super heavy weights. And I will tell you, I changed my beliefs, and over a 5-month period, literally 25 pounds melted off my body. And it was because I changed my beliefs and I put action to my values. All right, and you can take action on your values as well, but before you do that, you gotta figure out what those values are. You might know a little bit about your belief system and what you value as a human being, but to do the exercise, and we're gonna have you do this exercise now, you're gonna truly get clear on what those values are and how you can align them to your spending, saving, and sharing, so you can feel like you're living a life of abundancy and you're not living in scarcity, and you're truly aligning that wealth to your values. That is the first step in building adequate wealth. So let's get moving on that core value exercise. All right, so what I want you to do now is I want you to either print the PDF of the core value exercise or pull it up on your screen. I know many of you can probably write right on your screen. And what I want you to do is have, when you're looking at these 50 core values, what I want you to do first is just circle the core values that are super important to you. I don't want you to overthink it. I just want you to circle, is this important to you or not? It's a yes or no exercise to start. So just circle the ones that are. Push pause here and do the exercise right now. Okay, now that you have your circled, yes, these are important to me. What I want you to do with those values that are circled, I want you to narrow it down to 15. 15. Your top 15 values. So you're going to cross off more of the ones that are circled and just leave 15 that are important to you. Push pause now and come back when you're done. All right, welcome back. You have your top 15 core values. Now, you're probably gonna get a little pissed at me now, but what I want you to do is remove 5 of those values. All right, so you have your top 15, start thinking through, spend more time now, and the goal is to have your top 10 values. So remove 5 from your list of 15. Push pause and come back when you're done. You have your top 10? Okay. Don't get mad at me. This is the last part of the exercise. You gotta narrow it down to 5 values. Now here's the thing that I want you to do is take time and completely think through this. These are the values that are so important to you. You would not want to live life without having these values. All right, so push pause and narrow it down to your top 5. All right, yay, you have your top 5 values. All right, any of them new to you? Any of these were a surprise to you? Well, regardless, what I want you to do is make a list of them. Boom, 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 and boom, your top 5 values. And then I want you to put some meaning behind those values. I want you to ask yourself why those values are important to you. And then on the right side of the paper, I want you to get in alignment with how you're spending, saving, and sharing your financial resources in alignment with those values. So again, put me on pause and do that activity right now. All right, now that you know your values, you know why they're important to you, and then you have, if you're in alignment with your spending, saving, and sharing, what I want you to do is just take some time to think this through. You can do this activity with a significant other, your spouse, and talk about these values, because I'll tell you something, our values really don't change from year to year on who we are, and what really guides you through your life are these values. So if there are any misalignments with your values and how you're spending and saving and sharing your resources, think the reason through on why that is. Because I can tell you, most likely, it's because you have a limiting belief around one of those values, or you have a limiting belief around how you're spending, saving, and sharing. And think that through, and our next course is going to be on limiting beliefs.